A warm greetings to all of you. On behalf of Vedvyasa Institute of Technology, CSE Department in association with Computer Society of India VVIT chapter, I welcome all to the live webinar session on exploring blockchain applications for education. Now, it's my honor, myself, Dr. S. Kavita Murugeshan, HOD of CSE Department, on behalf of CSI VVIT chapter, welcome our principal Dr. Cinthiya ma'am, professors, faculty friends, students from various colleges to this webinar session. And it's my honor to welcome our respected speaker of today, Ms. Cinthiya Joy Godly ma'am. Now, about exploring blockchain applications. Blockchain in higher education is to transform the record keeping of degrees, certificates and making credentials digital. In this digital world, blockchain applications are going far beyond cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. Today, students' records are endless. And with blockchain technology, assets like attendance, courses, payment towards tuition fee, or whenever they attend a private school, grades, coursework and even their diploma can become a part of their personal blockchain record which never can be deleted and thus helps with data security. And as an outcome of our webinar session, it will help the audience to achieve knowledge on certificate management, competencies and learning outcome management, fees and credit transfer etc. without an intermediary to verify them. Now, it's my honor to welcome our speaker to this particular session. Let me introduce our speaker, Ms. Cinthiya Joy Godly ma'am, Assistant Manager, Academic Matters, Federation University at IIBT, Sydney, Australia. Ma'am has got 15 years of experience in teaching IT courses at both master's and bachelor's level and 12 years of experience in academic management. Cinthiya ma'am has been twice awarded the Vice Chancellor's Award in 2011 and 2016 for her contributions to student learning at Federation University, Australia. Currently, ma'am is a PhD research scholar who has also bagged the Golden Key membership for her GCETT degree. Ma'am is a motivational speaker and her hobbies includes dancing and social networking. Ma'am, it's a great honor to meet you in this particular live webinar session. Now, let me just give you a small idea for keeping a quality webinar experience. So, while the session is running by the speaker, please mute your audio and video and any doubts in between the session can be given in the chat box or by raising hands etc. during the interaction session at the end and it will be cleared with the doubt clearing sessions. Now, it is to you, our speaker, Ms. Cinthiya Joy Godly ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Vyvyasia Institute of Technology's Computer Science Department and the Computer Society VVIT chapter. I would like to thank the principal, Dr. Sangeeta Sukumaran, who's a good friend of mine, for giving me this privileged opportunity to present this webinar on blockchain technologies for education. Indeed, it's been a pleasure. I have been researching this topic, so I've got a very good introduction. So I'll run without any delay into the session. So I think the head HOD has given a good introduction to myself. So this is what we'll be going to be doing the next 1 hour for the session. We'll have an introductory that what is blockchain. I think you had a 1-slide introduction on blockchain, but I would like to elaborate a little bit more for people who have no experience on what blockchain is. And then we'll go into depth the topic of what blockchain for education is. And we would see some aspects of how we could research blockchain in the future for any researchers who are interested in this topic. So as already mentioned, I have been in Australia for the last 15 years. So I do take this academic role for a university in Australia called Federation University. So I am an administrator and a lecturer too. So I have been recently engaged in research in this topic. So I was very keen to see how we could use blockchain for education. So this webinar also comes out as an outcome where I have been researching on this topic for a couple of years now. So now, without delay into the topic, now what's blockchain? So I'm sure all of you would have heard about blockchain. Blockchain is a very hot and emerging trend that's happening in the last decade. So from 2009, we have been hearing about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So the blockchain, the term has started off from there. So let's have a quick insight into what blockchain is. Now, for people who do not know what is blockchain, it was first coined by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009. It came into the world as introductory to cryptocurrency. Now, I'm sure you would have heard in the last decade about cryptocurrency, online, crypto exchange of currency, trading, online sharing, or share trading, which has gone into a big, industry for the share investors. Now, what is blockchain? It is a disruptive technology. Now, it helps without a third party. Now, you might be wondering, what does that mean? So let's say if I want to transfer some information to you, without a third party involvement, we can use this concept of blockchain. Now, the first used Bitcoin was in 2009. They used the concept of secure. You talk about a secure ledger, yes, it comes with the understanding of the accounting. When a ledger is maintained, you do a debit credit. Similarly, a transaction in and outflow is lodged into the transaction. Hence, this is a very important and very well-known technology that has come into existence when we need to do secure transactions. So what does a secure ledger do? It helps a transaction to happen in a ledger without any alteration to be done. If an alteration is detected, then that becomes invalid. So it helps a very secure transaction to happen between two parties. And future to it, we had the shared ledger. The shared ledger technology allowed participants to record all their transactions in a ledger without any intermittent or disruptions happening. So to give you a small more idea of what blockchain was, because I do understand that there has been a little bit of introduction given, I would love to show a video which gives you more insight into what blockchain means. So this is how it goes. We have a transaction initiated by a user, and then that is put into a block, where the block is then initiated with a hash. So I'm sure if people understand what is a hash function, the actual hash function is what is being used in blockchain. So security, in information security, we would have learned about a hash function. So that's exactly what is being interceded into the block, and that's being broadcasted through networks. And then once all the blocks are authenticated without any interception or any change, then the blocks get added to the chain and the transaction is executed. So let me show you a quick video which can give us more insight into what blockchain is. I'm going to just share this video with you all. I'm just going to test if the audio comes in. Just bear with me for a minute. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all good. Starting the video.
But what is a blockchain? How do they work? What problems do they solve? And how can they be used? Like the name indicates, a blockchain is a chain of blocks that contains information. This technique was originally described in 1991 by a group of researchers and was originally intended to timestamp digital documents so that it's not possible to backdate them or to tamper with them, almost like a notary. However, it went by mostly unused until it was adapted by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 to create the digital cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Now, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that is completely open to anyone. They have an interesting property. Once some data has been recorded inside a blockchain, it becomes very difficult to change it. So how does that work? Well, let's take a closer look at a block. Each block contains some data, the hash of the block, and the hash of the previous block. The data that is stored inside a block depends on the type of blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, for example, stores the details about a transaction in here, such as the sender, receiver, and the amount of coins. A block also has a hash. You can compare a hash to a fingerprint. It identifies a block and all of its contents, and it's always unique, just as a fingerprint. Once a block is created, its hash is being calculated. Changing something inside the block will cause the hash to change. So in other words, hashes are very useful when you want to detect changes to blocks. If the fingerprint of a block changes, it no longer is the same block. The third element inside each block is the hash of the previous block. And this effectively creates a chain of blocks, and it's this technique that makes a blockchain so secure. Let's take an example. Here we have a chain of 3 blocks. As you can see, each block has a hash and the hash of the previous block. So block number 3 points to block number 2, and number 2 points to number 1. Now the first block is a bit special. It cannot point to previous blocks because, well, it's the first one. We call this block the Genesis block. Now let's say that you tamper with the second block. This causes the hash of the block to change as well. In turn, that will make block 3 and all following blocks invalid because they no longer store a valid hash of the previous block. So changing a single block will make all following blocks invalid. But using hashes is not enough to prevent tampering. Computers these days are very fast and can calculate hundreds of thousands of hashes per second. You could effectively tamper with a block and recalculate all the hashes of other blocks to make your blockchain valid again. So to mitigate this, blockchains have something that is called proof of work. It's a mechanism that slows down the creation of new blocks. In Bitcoin's case, it takes about 10 minutes to calculate the required proof of work and add a new block to the chain. This mechanism makes it very hard to tamper with the blocks because if you tamper with one block, you'll need to recalculate the proof of work for all the following blocks. So the security of a blockchain comes from its creative use of hashing and the proof of work mechanism. But there is one more way that blockchains secure themselves, and that is by being distributed. Instead of using a central entity to manage the chain, blockchains use a peer-to-peer network and everyone is allowed to join. When someone joins this network, he gets a full copy of the blockchain. The node can use this to verify that everything is still in order. Now, let's see what happens when someone creates a new block. That block is sent to everyone on the network. Each node then verifies the block to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. And if everything checks out, each node adds this block to their own blockchain. All the nodes in this network create consensus. They agree about what blocks are valid and which aren't. Blocks that are tampered with will be rejected by other nodes in the network. So to successfully tamper with a blockchain, you'll need to tamper with all the blocks on the chain, redo the proof of work for each block, and take control of more than 50% of the peer-to-peer network. Only then will your tampered block become accepted by everyone else. So this is almost impossible to do. Blockchains are also constantly evolving. One of the most recent developments is the creation of smart contracts. These contracts are simple programs that are stored on the blockchain and can be used to automatically exchange coins based on certain conditions. More on smart contracts in a later video. The creation of blockchain technology piqued a lot of people's interest. Soon others realized that this technology could be used for...
Right, so that's more about the introduction to blockchain. So let's now go back to the slide. Right. So that's an introduction to what blockchain is. So if people understood, like we have a secure transaction, we have no tampering happening. So that's the basis of blockchain. Now let's see how can we take it more into our education sector. So when we talk about blockchain for education, it's very important to understand that the potential into the education industry is unlimited. We have a lot of things that we can think beyond where we can implement this blockchain in our education sector. So let me go in there. First thing is, as I think the HOD has shared, the assets are endless. We have certificates, we have degrees, we've got completion certificates. Hence, it's very important to understand that if you need a record that is to be received without tampering, we need to have something very secure and legitimate. Hence, with blockchain, what can happen is nobody can tamper the document. So for example, we just saw that there is a block. If one of the blocks get tampered, then the entire chain is invalid. So same thing, if you are going to create a digital asset for an education sector, if one of the block gets tampered, the entire certificate gets invalid. So the main problem or the disadvantage that we are usually facing is tampered certificates, tampered degree, tampered documents. So to overcome that, we can use this blockchain. Hence, we can see that we have the authentic document that is in front of us. So only one bigger problem is once the document is set, is like a timestamp. We cannot delete it. So it's very important that in the education sector, we can use this new technology in an endless potential. So let's see what are the main 4 ways that we can use blockchain. So there are many ways we can use, there are many ways we can use blockchain, but I have tried to focus on only main 4, but these are not limited to these. There are more to go, but I have focused on main 4 things which we all can understand from a education perspective. So Gartner is a researcher. He has identified that there are 4 ways we can use this blockchain in the higher education industry or sector. Now, first one is to improve record keeping. Now, we are all working and we know that you're studying in a university. So imagine the number of certificates that have to be printed, the number of attendance that has to be maintained, the number of what documents that have to be collected. So blockchain and higher education help us to transform the record keeping of all these things: attendance, certificates, credentials, and mainly even the user can keep control of it. So you mean user? The student themselves, they can also keep control to the certificates by themselves. So having a advantage is you keep control of your own certificates, which you can use it for further use. And also blockchain can be used for accreditation of education institutions. So when we mean, I think you all, when you started your engineering degree, or people who have gone into the master degree, we all will realize that when we are going out taking admission into a university, we want to know if that university is accredited. So we are worried, okay, once I finished, is this university accredited? Is it a good university that I can graduate from? Hence, this blockchain can help us use the accreditation also. So we can try to do that, like many universities in the country can connect to a central thing, accredit their degree, and then we can keep them secure. So that's a potential that we can do, and it's a future for the education sector to get accreditation via blockchain. And the third concept in the record keeping is intellectual property. So I think we all understand what intellectual property is. Our thoughts. So when we think of an idea, what we usually do, we create an idea, we patent it. So the patent is an important thing that, once you create an idea, you can patent it and you can say that that's my idea, I have created it. So we can also do blockchain to keep the intellectual property intact. So once you create an idea, you can use blockchain to timestamp and say that I have created the idea and I can patent it. And hence it says it can be used to register intellectual property assets and copyright and patents. So that's a very thing, high level scientists, all I think they really want their patent to be secure. They don't want it to be stolen. So blockchain can be used for those purposes also. So that's one way where we can use record keeping for higher education sector. Now let's see the second topic. We can use the blockchain in the higher education sector, so to improve business processes. So when I say business processes, so from a university perspective, I'm talking from the administration perspective. So for a business, how can blockchain be used? So when we are talking about a university, that has also got a business in there. It's got their documents to be done. They've got their finance, they've got a lot of things that goes in there. So it helps improve the existing business process. So for example, blockchain-based university diplomas can be used to create virtual transcripts. So when I say virtual transcript, so for example, you would have had your year 10, year 12, then you've got your bachelor's, you've got your master degree, and then your next step will be into an employment. So you go into an organization as an employer. So employee, sorry. And then how do we carry all these certificates very safely? At this stage, we either scan it, put it as a scanned PDF file on our computers, or might be on your mobiles, and you keep it secure. But little do you know that even that can be tampered. So nowadays there are a lot of fraudulent activities happening, like people are using different people's transcript digitally and tampering and using them. So how can we stop that? So that can be achieved by this virtual transcript. So what is virtual transcript is, once your transcript is created, that's only on your name. And that uses the concept of blockchain, which is under that hash, whatever it is. Once that block is tampered, there you go, your certificate becomes invalid. So that's a verifiable lifetime transcript that you can carry around with you. So one good thing about this is you can transfer it from your school to your bachelor university, then they can send it to the master university, and from there to your employer. So it is just very seamless, you do not have to carry your documents. You don't have to get it notary certified or might be attested every time. So it's just very easy that from that point, digitally, virtually, you have your certificate with you and you can transfer it between organizations. So isn't that very easy? So in a business perspective, we can say that for a business, it's called as efficient play. So from a business perspective, efficiency, like a lot of paperwork is saved, a lot of checking is saved. So in the context of a business, it's an efficient play for them, and hence it's called efficiency in existing business processes. So we can improve processes in a better way. So I want to show one video, which I really found it interesting, from one of the IIT Indian Institute. I'll quickly show that to you. That will give you more insight into what I'm talking about.
As the government introduces innovative ways to provide education for all, new universities and educational institutions are coming up every day. However, in parallel, diploma mills or unaccredited institutions are also cropping up. Students and their potential employers are the ones who are the most affected by these fake degrees. While the government has taken strict action against such unaccredited institutions, there is a need for a preventive mechanism. Introducing Infosys Blockchain. Meet Priya, who is seeking admission in an alternate medicine stream from a trustworthy college in India. She logs onto a CCIM, Central Council of Indian Medicine sponsored blockchain network using an easy-to-use mobile app and gets trusted information about all accredited institutions offering medical courses and their course and fee structure and syllabi. Priya gradually secures an admission in Munial Institute of Ayurveda Medical Sciences, Manipal. This college is affiliated to the CCIM and the admission letter is updated on the blockchain network by the college itself. During the course of a degree, all her digital mark sheets and certificates are updated by her college on the network. All such documents are notarized by stakeholders on the network itself. These documents will ensure integrity of information as they are immutable, time-stamped, and digitally signed by the issuing authorities. Upon completion of the course, Munial College also updates Priya's BAMS degree certificate digitally on the network. Priya goes on to apply for a job at Sanjeevani Hospitals for Ayurvedic medicine in Ahmedabad, where she shares her educational certificates. Sanjeevani Hospitals can now easily validate the accreditation of Munial College and Priya's qualifications as well through the blockchain network. The blockchain network removes all middlemen and makes employee background verification quick and efficient.
So that was a small snapshot of what I really was trying to say, that blockchain in education, how much it can into the future, right? So that's the second way how we can improve business processes. The third thing is how we can create new market for digital assets. So when you are using digital, sorry for that. I think my computer auto video started playing up. Bear with me for a minute. Coming back to my share. Right. So creating a new market for digital assets. So what happens is now, for people who are traveling overseas or they want to go study overseas, I think this will be very much understandable. Or might be if you're going from one state to another state, how do you pay your fees? So that was another labor intense thing, how to process student payments. So we can create digital assets with blockchain. So for example, let's say you are from Kerala, you want to go study in Manipal with Pilani. So how do you get your money transferred? So you either do it through a online bank transfer, and it's a very tedious and laborious process where you transfer your money and you'll have to wait probably 2 days. If it's not the same bank, the money comes the next day, third day, depends on which bank you're transferring to, if you want an ID and all those things. So this started getting more complex when it started going overseas. So for example, somebody from India wanted to come and study in Australia. So I work in an administrative field. I see students coming and studying from various parts of the world in our university. So they have asked, how do we pay money? So it's a very laborious process that they do through demand draft. They do through transferring money online. So there are a lot of, available sources that can help us transfer money. However secure it is. So recently we had some cases in our university where people had fraudulent activities happen in their transactions of their fee. So with blockchain, what can happen is if you're going to set up a transaction, so I think we were talking about the blockchain ledger, secure ledger, we can also do payments online, like how cryptocurrency transactions are happening. We can also try to see if we can improve our payment options also. So it can become like a easy access for people to do crypto payments, and it can be a method to pay fees. So in 2014, King's College in New York, they were the first one who was the accredited US institution to use Bitcoin as payment for fees. Now, it also helps people eliminate the credit card charge, because in the credit card, mainly when we are doing transaction, there'll be a transaction fee when we have to do it over. And then, of course, people lose money when, even let's say when transferring money from one country to another, there is some fee that happens. So you might be losing, or let's say if you want to transfer $1,000, you will be charged $10, $20 for transaction only. So people were losing out money when it came to $20,000, $50,000 to be transferred. So that can be eliminated with the help of this blockchain, crypto Bitcoin currency concept. So that can be one option which we can use for future. It's also a very good research topic, because now people who are doing research in might be some topics, you can think about this. How can we create new digital assets with blockchain? That can be another idea for your research idea, because blockchain is a very emerging trend. Now, it's not only limited to education. There are other sectors also which can use this concept and this technology to improve their efficiency of their businesses. So that could be a third way where we can we can use blockchain for education sector. The fourth one that I would be discussing, which is the only 4 ones that I have been discussing, it's a disruptive business model. So when we mean a disruptive business model, so again, how do we get blockchain seamlessly? So now that we are having, can we do education sector, what all? So mainly, I think from a university perspective, they have got finance, they've got certificates, they have got even examinations. Now, can we have examination done online? Can we do marking online? So to create a disruptive business model, I think blockchain has got a lot of use cases which can help improve the record keeping. So that can even include examinations. So examinations also can be monitored. So for example, one exam is marked, nobody can tamper it. So that can be even done through blockchain. We can go to that level. So researchers are coming to that level where we can even go to a level that it's completely controlled online and digitally. So Wolf University is one of the first blockchain-powered non-profit borderless university. So it was founded by a group of academics from Oxford and Cambridge. They heavily relied on the blockchain and smart contract concept, where they wanted to create a big relationship between the learners and educators. So if you see currently, there are a lot of open universities. There's a university called openedu.au. Like, you just register onto that university, you can secure an admission in any Australian-based university. You can study online, but you'll have to do all your submissions online. So it's called like open education, openedu, openeducation.au. Now, similarly, we can even bring a borderless university. Like, anywhere you can sit and study. It can be called an Airbnb of degrees. So Airbnb is usually used for shopping, online accommodations, shopping travels, or it can be even for services. Like that, in future, we can create Airbnb of degree courses. Like, you can be sitting in any part of the world, you can study this degree, you can have your certificates through certified virtual transcripts and have it at your fingertips. So that's main 4 ways which I have researched and found. There are more. This could be only some that I have researched. So because of the limitation of time, I've just put it into 4 of them. So I'm going to just reiterate one of them. One is improving record keeping. Second one was for increasing efficiency in existing business processes, creating a new market for digital assets, and creating a disruptive business model. Now, these are the ways how we can use them for education sector. Now, going further, how can we implement blockchain? So the best way and the most renowned way how blockchain has been implemented is a cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin. So I think all of you have heard of the Bitcoin. One way to implement is through cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin. Then we can do distributed ledgers. Mainly they are transaction-based technology that can be done, like banking sector, insurance, finance, and all those things use distributed ledger. But for education industry and sectors where we belong to, like universities, colleges, we can use smart contracts. So I will be a little bit briefing on what a smart contract is. In the next slide. So now, you would have heard of the word contract. So I was thinking, I think the first video we did see that blockchain, he explained that what the smart contracts are one way how we can implement a blockchain for universities. So it can be a very, very, authenticated and verified way of using blockchain. So what is a smart contract? It is a computer protocol which is used to digitally facilitate, verify, and enforce the negotiation between 2 parties to perform a contract. So contract itself means that it's an agreement between 2 parties. So it can be between 2 parties, 2 organizations. It can be 2 always. It has to be between 2 people. It can be 1 to many also. So contracts are something which are very like a legal binding. So what we can do is we can use the same concept of smart contract, like a legal binding, to get the concepts that we have been discussing. Now, the smart contract allows the performance of good transaction or authenticated transaction without any third-party involvement. Now, Nick Szabo was an American cryptographer and a scientist who first found the concept of smart contract in 1997, way before Bitcoin was found. So he did introduce this concept of smart contract, which gives an understanding, how to get 2 authenticated parties connect to each other without the third party. So that was a very good concept that Nick Szabo identified. He found it in 1997, which was then adopted as Bitcoin implementation methodology by Nikomo further researchers. So that's one way we can use, and which is I'm trying to focus on. So I'll be mainly focusing on the smart contract today, which gives an understanding of how we can use it for our education sector. So what is a smart contract? So smart contracts are usually a negotiation and a relationship written in an authenticated way between two parties. So what we do is we try to find a K function. So what the K function try to identify two parties, give them the basic concept of the smart contract, sign the contract between them, legitimize it, and then share it between the two parties. So the two parties understand that this is specified and very authenticated. So let me quickly show you another video which gives a very good understanding of what the smart contract is.
Very popular nowadays. But what are they and what problems do they solve? The term smart contract was first used by Nick Szabo in 1997, long before Bitcoin was created. He is a computer scientist, law scholar, and cryptographer, so I'll spare you his exact words. But in simple terms, he wanted to use a distributed ledger to store contracts. Now, smart contracts are just like contracts in the real world. The only difference is that they are completely digital. In fact, a smart contract is actually a tiny computer program that is stored inside of a blockchain. Let's take a look at an example to understand how smart contracts work. You probably are familiar with Kickstarter, the large fundraising platform. Product teams can go to Kickstarter, create a project, set a funding goal, and start collecting money from others who believe in the idea. Kickstarter is essentially a third party that sits in between product teams and supporters. This means that both of them need to trust Kickstarter to handle their money correctly. If the project gets successfully funded, the project team expects Kickstarter to give them their money. On the other hand, supporters want their money to go to the project if it was funded, or to get a refund when it hasn't reached its goals. Both the product team and its supporters have to trust Kickstarter, but with smart contracts, we can build a similar system that doesn't require a third party like Kickstarter. So let's create a smart contract for this. We can program the smart contract so that it holds all the received funds until a certain goal is reached. The supporters of a project can now transfer their money to the smart contract. If the project gets fully funded, the contract automatically passes the money to the creator of the project. And if the project fails to meet these goals, then the money automatically goes back to the supporters. Pretty awesome, right? And because smart contracts are stored inside a blockchain, everything is completely distributed. With this technique, no one is in control of the money. But wait a minute, why should we trust a smart contract? Well, because smart contracts are stored on a blockchain, they inherit some interesting properties. They are immutable and they are distributed. Being immutable means that once a smart contract is created, it can never be changed again. So no one can go behind your back and tamper with the code of your contract. And being distributed means that the output of your contract is validated by everyone on the network. So a single person cannot force the contract to release the funds because other people on the network will spot this attempt and mark it as invalid. Tampering with smart contracts becomes almost impossible. Smart contracts can be applied to many different things, not just on crowdfunding. Banks, for example, could use it to issue loans or to offer automatic payments. Insurance companies could use it to process certain claims, and postal companies could use it for payment on delivery, and so on and so on. So now you might wonder, where and how can I use smart contracts? Well, right now there are a handful of blockchains who support smart contracts, but the biggest one is Ethereum. It was specifically created and designed to support smart contracts. Smart contracts can be programmed in a special programming language called Solidity. This language was specifically created for Ethereum and uses a syntax that resembles JavaScript. It's also worth noting that Bitcoin also has support for smart contracts, although it's a lot more limited compared to Ethereum. So now you know what smart contracts are and what problems they solve. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, hit the like button and get subscribed. And as always,
so that's a small introduction to what smart contracts were. So now you would get an idea of how we can use all these concepts as a smart contract into the education sector. Now, it's not limited. Now, this blockchain idea can be expanded into other sectors also. So if anybody is planning to research, how can we use blockchain into various sectors, not only the education sector, by finance, banking, anything else. So you can use consensus algorithm, you can use cyber attacks on blockchains, you can do economic impact on cyber attacks. So all these things, scalability on blockchains. And I have picked up the smart contracts, which is so much related to the field that I work in, because I work in a university, I do teaching and I do some administration. So I understand that, how to give certified documents, how to see that the accredited universities where the students go to. That gave me a good insight. And that's the reason I've chosen smart contract as a really good researching topic. Now, the potentials are not limited. You can even expand it to banking, finance, supply chain, government, automotive, medicine, healthcare. There are many, travel, transportation, agriculture. So there's even agriculture that we can work on. So these are some of the future topic of interest that you can think on blockchain, not limiting to education only. But having said that, like every coin, it has got two sides. It's got both the cons and the drawbacks. So smart contracts is a very new technology and it's very young. So many people are still researching and identifying how can it be used. So we are all learning. So in the last decade, we have found that Bitcoin, there were a lot of people who lost money on their Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is a very good trending thing that's happening in the last decade. People have made a lot of money, made millions of money. So it can be promising, but it can be risky too. So it's not that, again, everything has its got ups and downs. So if you can see, there was one of the code which has gone wrong, it can create a bug. Yes. So to get that to that level, we need to make sure that you have configured your programming and your hash functions on the blockchain perfectly. And also it can create, like in the DAO hack account, there was some money that was stolen because the code was entered differently and it was stolen. So it can happen consensually. People can give away the code. That can also happen. And because of the novelty of the technology, people are still in question. How can we incorporate this blockchain into various sectors like government, like tax collection? Can they be used? Can the contracts become legal? Because nowadays we think about the legal aspects also, so how can we make it legal? That can be also another issue that we might be facing. So if the agreement doesn't go well, then what will happen to the contract? And all those things of worries come with people, So if this was to happen, if it is a traditional contract, then it can go to a court. But something that is sitting digitally, how can we take it to court? So there are blockchain, like there are a lot of cyber law is being created around this blockchain. And now it's also called as code is law policy, where even digitally, if you create a crime, you have cyber policy and cyber laws being incorporated nowadays. So they're trying the best, but again, it's a research topic. It is a new technology that we're bringing forward. So it's always good to know and then jump into it before you start making a decision on what you're doing. But there is no doubt that blockchain is the happening emerging topic and the future for security purposes. I would like to conclude with something that I would say, that blockchain sees a lot of smart contract merging into hybrid and digital content, which can be replacing all your physical documents. And then smart contracts are also in association with cryptocurrency, where many of the banks and finance are being used, and might be in future, never know, voting can be done using blockchain, because that sometimes the voting is also corrupt. To make it more transparent and accessible for people, we can use that. And many supply chain concepts are also using blockchain, like real estate, healthcare, taxes, insurance. And it's never ending. Many industries are trying to make use of the smart contracts, especially to implement what they can in blockchain for their industry. I would like to conclude with that, and I would now open the chat box to see if there's some questions that we have, so I can address the queries that we have got. Just running through the questions that have come. Oh, I don't have any questions. Looks like my session has been very clear. I know somebody raised the hand during the session. If you could type your question into the chat box, I could answer your questions, because that's the best way that we're not losing on sound or video. If you have any questions, you could type into the chat box. Yeah, I've got a couple of messages coming in. Right. So how can we deal with scalability? Right. Now with the blockchain, it's a huge thing that we talk about scalability, because when we are, I would take an example, the exams itself. Now, if we are talking about an exam in a university, now it can be multiple level scalability that we're talking about. Now, it can be online marking, but when it comes to how do we digitally mark them, right, using blockchain, it's really huge. So I know it's at this stage looking very impossible, but it's not going to be impossible if we find a better way how to do the digital marking. How can we get it more incorporated digitally with blockchain? So yes, there is now a doubt on scalability for blockchain, but it's in the near future. I'm sure there's something that's going to come up which we can overcome to have this issue of scalability come up. Yep. I have got another question. Can you please give some idea about mining? If you're talking about data mining, I'm not very sure if you're asking about data mining, so I'm just trying to be very specific. So with blockchain, I don't think any mining will get incorporated into, because all data are already cleaned up and given ready into the blockchain. So yes, there is some mining that would be, oh, you're talking about Bitcoin mining. Okay. With Bitcoin mining, there is a lot of research that's being done. So if somebody is very much keen in Bitcoin mining, there is a lot of potential, because in the last 10 years, there has been a lot of hackers who have hacked this cryptocurrency, and people lost a lot of money on it. So there is a lot of potential for Bitcoin mining also. Now, with blockchain, it can help you do to an extent, but with mining, what you could do is only find the data and the errors into it. But with blockchain, you're trying to authenticate it. So it might be two different sectors that we're talking about. The mining could be you are trying to find data, like we're finding data in a mining concept. But when we're talking about blockchain, especially with smart contracts, we're trying to fix the authenticity issue there. So it can be two little bit different spectrums that we're talking about, but we can bring something in, but not an extent where we can try to incorporate the smart contracts. But we might have to do something like distributed ledgers, or could be with cryptocurrencies, nothing can be done. We cannot do, we can do mining, but to an extent, because it itself is a mining concept that we have incorporated there. But yes, there's a lot of potential in the mining for Bitcoin with blockchain. Now, another question what I've got was, what's the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum? Now, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. Ethereum is a technology that uses JavaScript for coding to incorporate the smart contracts. So with the cryptocurrency, what they do is secure transaction using ledgers. So ledger is, what is a ledger? It's like in, out, what do you call debit credit concept. So you incorporate your credit and the debit, and you have a ledger that's being created. But in a smart contract, which uses Ethereum, which is a JavaScript concept, they do adding like a contract, like fixing the, what do you call, authenticity. So for example, let's say I have a certificate which I want to get from VVIT Institute of Technology. So with a smart contract, what I can do is I can authenticate with the Ethereum JavaScript to see that I only get the transcript. But when we're talking about Bitcoin, we are talking about cryptocurrency transaction. So it can be one-to-many. But when we're talking about Ethereum JavaScripts, it's one-to-one. So it's only one student gets one transcript. So that's the main difference between Ethereum and the Bitcoin. Now, another question what I've got was, can we say blockchain replace the banking sector? No. No technology can replace the banking sector. We need still the banking. We need banking because we still need somebody to collect our money and distribute our money. We cannot say, especially when it comes to, or let's say countries, okay? Now, countries, the economy comes from their banking. I don't know how many of you all go into the economic times. If you all are into this finance sector, you will understand that most of the company tax, the company country's economy comes from banking. So no way Bitcoin can replace banking sector, because banking is the backbone of the economy of a country. So yes, person-to-person transaction, like we still need some legitimate source. So we still rely on banks. I think even now, even though we say money to transfer to India, all those one-to-one, they still use a banking concept there. So it goes through a bank. So any country has that very what you call robust system called banking, which if it has to be replaced, it has to be something very robust, which we can think in the future. I'm not saying that it cannot replace, but to an extent where private companies use these what you call one-to-one transaction, we can replace. Yeah. Do I have any other questions? Ethereum is one-to-one kind. So when I say one-to-one, when I mean it's meaning contracts. So I'm not saying it is like, I just gave an example of a transcript, but Ethereum is a coding which can help you create smart contracts. So it's a technology. It's not a way to implement Ethereum. A smart contract is a way to implement Bitcoin, and Ethereum is one of the technologies. When I say one, it's one of the technologies which can help you to create smart contracts. So when you mean it's one-to-one kind, yep, it can be for a smart contract. Yeah. Why blockchain is highly trusted is another question. I would say the same thing. My money coming to you. If I believe that nobody's going to steal my money, I will trust it. Something that I believe that if I am sending money to you without a third party, I will trust it. Blockchain comes in that context. So when I have no third party involved and I can transfer money to you without any interception happening, then I trust it. And that's the reason blockchain is being trusted heavily in the last decade. Did I miss out anything? Yeah. I can wait for a couple of minutes too. And I think your HOD has sent out a link for you all to give some feedback. So I kindly encourage you all to give some feedback, and I would love to hear from you all if you all want to give some feedback. Oh, thanks, Dr. Tirumala Sami. That's great to hear that you learned something from me. Awesome. I've got a question. Why using, okay, what was that? I'm not getting it. Why using NONCE? Okay, I didn't understand that. If you could be a little bit more specific. I'll go to the next question. It says cryptocurrency is question mark. So what is cryptocurrency? So cryptocurrency is something that uses online transaction in the form of Bitcoin. Bitcoins are something, they themselves called as cryptocurrency. So you do not use a third party to transfer money. You use crypto, like the blockchain itself, to do crypto transactions. That's cryptocurrency. It's like secure transactions, secure money online. Okay, so nonce. Why using nonce? Yeah, timestamp. Now, okay, let me get to this point. Why do we use a timestamp? So if you do not have a timestamp on your certificate, how do we know that it's legitimate? So nonce you can use as a timestamp, but if you don't have a timestamp, then how do we know that your document which you've created is legitimate? So I think that's the concept, you know, all your documents when they ask you to attest it. And I'm sure most of your documents, when it goes more than 2 years, they ask you to get a new attested certificate. And that's the main concept. They want it up to date. And that's the reason they want timestamp. Okay. Creating block we use previous block hash time, the miracle root, and the ons 6 zeros. All right. So did I get a question there, or did I miss out something? Or what looks like some answer that's been given out there. What is the purpose of using nonce? Okay. I think I'm coming to this concept. The timestamp is to authenticate it. That's the main purpose. If we do not have an authenticate, how do you know that it is authenticated? So if you do not use a timestamp, like blockchain doesn't do a timestamp, it even avoids a timestamp because you are creating it once forever. So it doesn't require a timestamp. So timestamp is required only when you have documents which are outdated. But with blockchain, never your document is outdated. So we don't need a timestamp technically. Okay, that is the Genesis block. I think one question was coming about the hash and the 6 zeros. So whenever an initial block is created, it has to be a Genesis block somewhere to initiate it, and hence the zeros. So the Genesis block usually takes it up as zeros, and that's why it's called as the Genesis block with 0 as the block. Right, I think we have done with almost all the questions. I would like to thank VVIT Institute of Technology for this excellent opportunity that was given to me. Okay, I've got this question. Yeah, if somebody wants to give a feedback, yeah.
Hello? Is there anybody? Yes. Shaiju sir? Yes, sir. You can unmute and speak.
Hello, good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's good evening for me here, sorry.
Yeah, my goodness, it's okay. Good. Okay,
Yeah.
I am not of this field
Yeah.
because I belongs to physics faculty, but you have given a nice explanation that I must know what happening and what is the need for the future. It's my personal thanks to you and the organizers. Thank you so much.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody feedback? Those who want to give, you can give it.
Thank you, ma'am. Basics of blockchain. I'm doing study about blockchain for a while, and I have some doubts according to this, because from your presentation I can get some clarity about that. And finally, yeah, is there any great documentation or something else I could go while I was studying about blockchain? If there is any suggestion for?
Yeah, I can do one thing. I can share my email address so you can stay connected with me. I'm just going to post my email address to everyone in the chat box. So if you want, you can connect to me and I can give you more insight into whatever doubts you've got. So I've just shared my email address. That's cjgodly@iibit.edu.au. So you all can write to me. I can give you a lot of insight into what you want additional support that I can give you on. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you giving us a lot of insight in blockchain. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. My pleasure. Yeah.
I've been working on a project which is verify the certificate actually.
Yep.
verifying a
Awesome.
certificate
Yeah.
using blockchain.
Excellent. Oh, I would love to hear from that more. Yeah.
Yeah, and just studying all the stuff, and I'm working on Ethereum Solidity. And the main problem I am facing right now is the documentation issues, because I got some tutorials, and while I doing Solidity is daily improving, and
Yes.
the documentation which I am been following is been
It
2
gets
years past,
outdated.
and now it's
Yeah.
been it is outdated.
You
I
would
think
have found that, yes,
six-
it's the latest version now. Yeah, it's changed. Yeah.
yeah, it is. I think even the syntax is also changed. Even I can initiate a string, older version, just string and variable name. Now it is string memory variable name.
Variable name. It's
I've been
changed the
wasted a
syntax. Yeah.
whole day just. I've been wasted whole day for looking for the just memory thing.
My God.
That's the thing right now I'm going through.
Yeah, blockchain has evolved in the last decade. That's exactly what I was saying. Where the Bitcoin currency started is not what they're doing in the hash function now. So it's changed a lot. So people who are interested in crypto and analysis, I think this is a very good area of research because I'm into it. So I really find it very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Miss. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Can we go for the official vote of thanks?
Yes, I think.
I think the session has been a wonderful session, and I thank our management, our principal ma'am, Dr. Cinthiya ma'am, who have given such a good connection and such a good speaker, with whom we have got a great insight of the idea regarding blockchain methodology, that too with higher education. And ma'am, it was really a splendid experience. All those videos, etc., were really very nice and highly informative. And I thank once again for giving us such a good opportunity to hear related to the practical concept of this particular area. And students who are really interested only have really joined, and they have got a lot of doubts. And I think they are still working on it. And many of them are doing their projects also. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation in a very short notice and doing this particular session. And I thank all the participants, our colleague teachers who have attended this, and all the professors and principal ma'am from other departments and other colleges. And thank you, ma'am, once again for such a wonderful session, and to all the participants. And once again, we will meet in the next webinar. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and be happy. Thank you, ma'am. Godly, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Cinthiya, ma'am.
Thank you all. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
Happy
It was
seeing
nice
you, ma'am.
talking to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.